Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Today I'm joined by Sri RVS Mani. You all know RVS Mr. Mani. You don't need any introduction. He has been a Ministry of Home Affairs official for many, many years. And today we're going to talk about a very important topic, that is China and India's options now that 120 square kilometers has been occupied by China over the last 6 to 8 weeks. Mr. Mani, welcome to P Guru's channel.
Namaskar. Namaskar.
Namaskaram, sir. I'll put the question to you straight away. 4 points. China have intruded into India's territory. What used to be LAC, they are trying to redefine that, it looks like. And in this intrusion, India had some idea way back in the middle of April. And then for some reason, nothing happened until the middle of May. And in that time, Chinese have moved in. They've moved in tanks. They've moved in artillery. And in fact, there have been some skirmishes also. 90 people from India side and 140 from China have been hospitalized. And as things stand today, there's a tense standoff. And India is now regrouping. They're perhaps putting troops on the ground, trying to see what they can do to get an idea and perspective of all the pressure points along this 3,648 odd kilometers of line of actual control. Perhaps you can walk us through the pressure points. What are India's options, and what, in your opinion, should India be doing?
See, it is surprising that we allowed them over a past 2 month period to really strengthen their position, because strengthening, giving them opportunity, giving them time is they are reinforcing and then they're empowering themselves into their positions, current positions. 4th April onwards, my information is this has been, I've read a lot of material on this. My information has been lot of incursions have been taking place. There are some brave captain who had strongly and muscularly handled the Chinese major and all that. Later on, he was shifted to Kolkata base, Eastern Command and all that. This is what is available. These are all available facts. The basic question is, you have the satellite support imaging, you have the military intelligence working there, you have the ITBP and the SSB, two border guarding forces on the Indo-China border. We are also have their own local intelligence units. Everybody was there. The information, the intelligence was available. From 4 to 17, they have been strengthening. 4th April also, they have been strengthening. And thereafter, the inputs have been, it is also reported, it is also available informally that and from 1st May on, the intelligence report was available on the hand with somebody, some official in the government of India. ITBP inputs were also there. So the incursions was in the knowledge of the bureaucrats. Now the bureaucrats, even the joint secretary or secretary, does not take a decision on how to counter that. It has to go to the Cabinet Committee on Security. It is unfortunate, because my sense is something which is not very palatable to people, is that we have a CDS now, Chief of Defense Staff, all three. We have an apex person there and very experienced soldier, a retired general, former general of the Indian Army. You have appointed him as a CDS, and if you do not allow the CDS to take a call, or if he does not advise this Cabinet Committee on Security to take a precipitative, because including this information that somebody had sat on the input for 12 days or whatever number, I don't know, but that is what is the information available with us. How did it happen? What was they trying to do with the input, with such a sensitive input? He is not going to take a decision. Just throw it up. Let the Secretary of the Ministry brief the NSA, brief the political leadership, the Home Minister, the Defense Minister, the Prime Minister, about such damaging incursions happening in 120 kilometers. Because let us be it very fact that China has always been saying that it is only 2,000 kilometer border, rest of us is ours. That is a very, very erroneous and a very, although it is established that around 3,800 kilometers is the length of the border. this is one thing which is very surprising. This should be brought out in the public domain. Why that officer, whomsoever, why the Secretariat of the Defense Ministry or Home Ministry had withheld the input from the senior leadership, from the security advisor or the CDS should have been first asked to take a stand on 5th or 7th with all the inputs available. He should have been given the mandate, whether he was given the mandate, because there is a lot of, because CDS has not been taken, appointment of CDS was scuttled for a long time. Now it has not been taken very kindly by the Secretariat bureaucracy in the Defense Ministry. That's a very established fact. Any army officer will tell you. And how much of inputs are really going to him, whether, because the input is received in the whatever level, joint secretary or director level, sort of a registry. It's supposed to be the fountainhead of all the inputs. Whether they prefer to give it to the defense secretary, and the defense secretary also alerted the CDS, is one point. Number two is, these are all operational issues. Why we are, and I'm not getting into any orientation or the ideological orientation or the support mechanism of the bureaucrats. They are supposed to do a job. That is their job. That is their grain. That they have to, in such situations, they do have to brief or familiarize the senior political leadership. Here it is the CCS, either, or even the executive leadership, which is the CDS, which is ultimate. So all these people, whether they were briefed on whether a counter strategy was proposed. If not, was the CDS involved in, asked to give a counter strategy to counter this? Because in 2016 also the Doklam issue happened. We drove them away. This is not today's problem. This is a perennial problem. Sometimes they will bring dams. Yes, please. Yes.
Now, in addition to India's own intelligence inputs, the United States supplied inputs on April 20th, 21st, and 22nd based on what they were seeing from satellite images, saying that there was a massing of troops on the LAC. Now, this information was not going through the bureaucratic lineup. It was probably going into the Ministry of Defense. Reliable sources indicate that the Ministry of Defense knew about this, and the same sources say that those who felt that Russia had some idea or hold on what China was up to contacted the Russian counterparts, and Russia said, don't worry, they're not going to cross over. And based on this, they say that no action was suggested. I don't know how true this is. This is another line of input, another data point. So what that begs the question is, US is saying, I saw this in satellite, and it gives the input, watch out. Now, then the group goes to Russia, and Russia says, no, China will not do anything, don't worry about it. And China basically ignores that. Either Russia doesn't have anything to say about, any say on China's activities, or China told something to Russia and did something else. We don't know what happened between those two. But the question that needs to be asked is, why is Russian input favored over the American input? I don't know why.
The first question is, let us not get into the Russian input, or let us get the grain right. It is for us to defend our borders. There was no need to consult Russia once the input was authentic, satellite based, and your own intelligence inputs have been saying that was available with that. Where was the need for? Was there somebody who I am trying to avoid any incursions or any compromise by Russia on the Indian bureaucracy? But if this has happened, it is unfortunate that whomsoever had decided to consult Russia should be brought to light, and it should be brought on the public domain. Because now what are the Russians' position? And you know the integrity of China. World over, they have been alleged to have spread a sort of a bioterrorism. That is a secondary issue. I'm not digressing like that. But the basic question is, what was the reason? Was it the appreciation, lack of appreciation of Indian capabilities, or was it a handout given by Russia to, or somebody close to the Russian establishment, to allow the Chinese to get themselves enforced. They get themselves empowered in on the after the incursions have happened, and they hold their positions. Because every day in these matters is a delay in the matter, is a giving a strength to the enforcing, or rather giving them a lot of strength, military strength, to really uphold their positions, and that is what is unfortunate. So this should also be brought out, that who was the gentleman, wise gentleman, who decided to, who directed or decided to consult the Russians. That is a very, very vital point, because the my information is that defense forces are now, even now, like it happened in 2611. Let us get it in right. Even in 2611, I have already discussed that while the Indian Navy had sighted the ship all that on the Pakistani waters, it is allegedly that they were redeployed, or they were asked not to go as per the Chidambaram statement. Has something like this happened here now? It's a question which begs an answer from the establishment. Who was the person, or how did the Russia, what was the need for a Russian consultation when you have to secure your borders?
That is true. I agree with you. I mean, we can only speculate on what was the thought process, but certainly the fact that there is a chief of defense staff, that person is the one who can coordinate all three arms of the, or even four, I should say, four arms of the armed forces, and be able to effectively deal with this. Now, I have another interesting thing. Since you brought up the name of Mr. Chidambaram and Congress, I have an interesting data point for you. On 11th May, Mr. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, who is the Congress leader of opposition in Lok Sabha, he tweeted the following: "Be careful, China. Indian forces know how to defang the venomous snakes like you. The entire world is watching the sinister design of yellow expansionist. I would suggest the government to accord diplomatic recognition to Taiwan without much delay." Well, that would think, you would think that, aha, finally Congress has come to the party. Here is a guy who is suddenly talking very nationalistic. Except a few hours later, he deleted his tweet.
Right. I'm aware of that. That's what I was about to say.
Now that is where things get really interesting. Please go ahead. Do you have something to say?
Another thing I would want about one panelist called Ajay Shukla, a former defense officer who is now a supporter of Congress, or whether he calls it, because Congress spokesmen don't call themselves Congress spokesmen, they call themselves analyst. He says nothing like that has happened. They want to create another thing like Kargil. He has put it in a TV debate. I'm not recollecting it. Ajay Shukla. He very clearly says that this is only a PR to promote Modi's image. Nothing has happened in China. This on the Chinese border. It is a matter of record. You can check all the TV debates. Somewhere he has said that. So I countered him like that, but that's a different issue. But the question again is, Congress is up to what they want to do. We are not bothered about it. Today, the mantle is in the hands of the NDA. Immediately what happens is, supposing if I have a problem, I as in the secretariat get an input like this, intelligence input at any level, joint secretary level, special secretary level, immediately it is taken. Within 3 hours, we have to act upon it. That is the, I have had discussed about the Kaiga atomic reactor, where the jihadis wanted to poison the water supply and all. We have moved, set the ball rolling. We have not taken a decision, but certainly the ball rolling was set in 3 hours or 5 hours. That is the timeline. But here you have a very evident case that some people had slept with the papers on around 10 to 12 days. Plus the decision to consult Russia, which has got no role in the given circumstances to deal to do anything about this. This is second. So these are all matters. One is the Congress complicity in the issue. Number two is the people sleeping over the intelligence input, in spite of the fact that not one source, you have the US source, you have the satellites, you have the LIU of all the border guarding forces, you have the army intelligence, everybody is shouting hoarse about it, and the orders are not coming from the top. Immediately CCS should have been alerted. And in fact, I have a take on this, that Like the cabinet, the CCS should also be meeting and reviewing the security scenario on a very periodic basis. But now what happens, most of the time what happens is only when there is an agenda on the table, they come and meet. It's a very reactive process. CCS should meet regularly. Having appointed a chief of defense staff, he should be a special invited to the cabinet committee on security. These are all, and he will brief weekly or periodically on the challenges to the security on the borders and other such security issues every week or so, or whatever way, whatever the methodology, whatever the time period. If this had happened, even then, if this type of periodic meetings were being held, certainly it would have come on the agenda that these type of incursions are happening. Whether Russian says so, let the cabinet committee take a decision on that. They are supposed to take a decision. Let them take a decision on that. And many officers do come and attend the cabinet committee meeting, including the Home Secretary, Defense Secretary, Foreign Secretary, etc. Let them come out with a clear agenda. So in 2 months, we have lost a lot of ground. We have lost, they have really enforced themselves. They have pegged themselves in the encouraged area. How much we don't know. Only a field level man will go. Plus, now we are moving the troops. Indeed, it is very important that we move the troops. But now, and 2, 3 is this SWOT analysis. What are our strengths? Please.
Sir, before we go further into SWOT analysis, I wanted to just express a couple of things. One is that the Chinese position now is very, very close to Daulat Beg Oldie Airport. I have not seen any plane landing or takeoff now after this new repositioning of Indian aircraft. Are they able to land and take off? Because information is that they are within the shooting distance of the anti-aircraft guns that Chinese may have, and they can actually bring down any aircraft trying to land or take off. I'm just saying this is the worst case scenario, but I have not, at least so far, seen any news item saying that India is able to land its planes in Daulat Beg Oldie Airport today. Do you have any information on this, sir?
See, last was that Daulat Beg Oldie Airport, the airstrip, without the knowledge of the political executives, because of their vacillatory nature, Air Marshal in 2008 has confirmed, retired Air Marshal Pranav Borbora has confirmed that he had landed the airport there, aircrafts there. So to that extent, with a minor communication iteration and all, and the airstrip terrain checking and all, within 6 hours, that same could be made ready for any landing. If it has not landed, maybe because of the inherent risk of anti-aircraft guns being placed in the Chinese territory, the Chinese anti-aircraft gun. But I think the Indian Army or Indian Defense Forces are adequately capable of calibrating them and get the timing of their landing right, or maybe some benefits. Which number 2 is the anti-aircraft gun. If at all it has been placed, it should have certainly come under the radar of the intelligence agencies. So it would have been certainly, intelligence agencies don't do any decision. They collect the intelligence, do a lot of iteration check and inform the government department, whether it is Home Ministry or Defense Ministry. There are 4 or 5 major intelligence in this context, like the LIU of ITBP, LIU of SSB, and you have the military intelligence, you have the RNDW, you have the IB, everybody working on that. Surely it would have been brought to even the deployment of an anti-aircraft gun so close to the, within the range of where the range of which is under which the Daulat Beg Oldie Airport comes, would have been there. So they could have taken many other such countermeasures by this time. But the question is, the loss of time is very, very unfortunate. So even the Daulat Beg Oldie Airport, Air Marshal Pranav Borbora has confessed that he did the landing there without the approval of even the defense minister. We should appreciate that. It is not anything. We should appreciate that the capability was increased for us to check that in 2008. But now, having said that, now if it is not, if these capabilities, see, one is the air power we have, the Daulat Beg, how to counter the anti-aircraft, factor that and use that. Plus, in the recent years, the last 5, 6 years, we have acquired a lot of military capabilities in terms of ammunitions, approach, the road connectivity, communications, and all. Even this could, if this had been taken into account, I felt that we had a relatively minor advantageous version in terms of power of balance of power with China. We could have harnessed it and put it to test and prove to the world that don't mess with us. It is not a statement of standing with China. You have to prove it to the world also that don't mess with us. Because
Now,
China per se is isolated now.
now here are some thoughts I had, sir. So let's say they have intruded into 120 square kilometers of area on total of all those 4 places. Would it be possible for India to cut off the supply lines so that, so what if you have come inside? If you don't have supply lines, how are you going to feed your troops? Is that something that India might be looking at? I'm just asking you hypothetical.
Hypothetically, Chinese, see, they are the supply lines come from, say, having incurred into the Indian territory. They can always ensure supply lines from the backside, back channel. That is not a big issue. They can see Aruna. See, the border is not very far because you take 120 aggregate,
Right.
but if the 4 points, it may not be even less than 30 kilometers average.
Square kilometers, yeah.
30 square kilometers. So 30 square kilometers, around maybe the highest is around 15 kilometers one side. So the supplies can still flow on, and it will be uncharted territory. So supply lanes cutting is only a very soft option. We have to go for a much more muscular options. We have done it in Doklam. This is in now the Doklam was a single point. Now this is spread over 4 places. Mobilize all your capabilities and do it and finish it. In fact, there should be very clear cut because I know the Chinese resistance will be very strong, and Chinese resistance could also be backed up by raising requirement for security forces in the hinterland because of the Pakistani connection. When your security forces will be facing some hostile situations with the Chinese there, they will create trouble in the hinterland to ensure diversion of security focus.
Well, COVID is a diversion.
COVID is a diversion, but not the security. More than security, the health infrastructure which is deployed, or the state government's politicking which is happening. But supposing, say, 2 terror attacks takes place, or 1 Naxal, because Naxals also have all of them have the same Gangotri. So when Pakistan non-state actors will be triggered once you take a military action here, that is one challenge. I'm sure the intelligence agencies will be able to alert it, but more importantly, Pakistan will immediately start, because they have so many things in common in the agenda, they will immediately take some precipitate measure on this side, say maybe a terror attack in Kochi or somewhere, so that a part of the security apparatus gets diverted. That is one challenge now because more and more it's not only 120 square kilometers, it is around 50 days, which is more important. 47 days, which is most important. So in 47 days, they must have built a solid military base out there in all this. Maybe, as I said, 30 kilometers in each of the 4 points. So to remove that, it's like a cancer. To remove that, when you're removing that, there will be some problem in a very uncharted area and maybe anywhere in the country, maybe Karnataka, Kerala, or even very far from these places, so that the security apparatus focus can be diverted. This is one impending danger we have, impending challenge we have. And generally, I make forecasts, they more or less come. I wish this doesn't come through. That is my humble submission. But many of my hypotheses have been proved right. So this is one impending challenge.
Well, you see, they tried something like the Pulwama attack that got thwarted, luckily. And why say lucky? Because sometimes, luck also plays a big factor. You can do all the preparations, but a simple piece of luck playing your way can go a long ways in averting some of these things. Now, we can only be prepared and we can only consider all the options and see which ones make the most sense. Now, India is a net importer from China. India imports a lot of stuff from China, which is a kind of finished product. Like even the shirts that we wear in India, These are all ready-made. They're coming from China. India had a lot of good tailors. In fact, if you buy cloth, have it stitched by a tailor, it fits you much better. But we have all gone the route of going to a mall and buying a ready-made shirt. Now, India needs to go back to those ways, but it'll take some time before we do that, even assuming that India wants to do that. Do you think an economic boycott, I won't say blockade, a boycott, just say India says that, okay, this, we are going to start completely boycotting Chinese products? Because you can always inflict the pain by looking at the 80-20 rule, meaning 80% of the imports might be in 20% of the products that India might be importing. And just try to see if you can source those from elsewhere, and also simultaneously try and grow your own infrastructure. Is that something that's a possibility?
It is a possibility to the extent that basically not just shirt, the light engineering goods, the small items like the ACSR conductors and light engineering, the bulbs, lights, this, that, and small things, including CED and all that. They are coming in tons and tons, huge quantities into India. And number two is enforcing that could be a challenge. The challenge is, say, for example, the Alipur Dwar, the Siliguri, Jaipalguri, and all that is the hub through which it comes into the grey market. And with the propensity of a cost, price sensitivity for the Indian consumers, for 3 rupees difference, they will go for a Chinese product. And this is an established fact, the price sensitivity. So what MSME, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, after having taken over, is doing a lot of good work. I hope he delivers. All are fructified into real deliverables. But the light engineering in those areas are actually struggling because of the Chinese competition. If you give a sort of a support mechanism, see, identify the things which will not come from China. You have the Indian Electricity Act, you have the other Safety Standards Acts and all that. Ensure that the provision is introduced that that all the Chinese standards will not be acceptable and shall be penalized with a criminal. You criminalize the offense of using a Chinese light or a Chinese electricity bulb or whatever it is. These type of draconian measures are required, and to prove the point, arrest some of these dealers who are selling these Chinese, plus Chinese chemicals are coming, Chinese consumables are coming. These type of consumables in the light engineering, in the other mechanical areas, ban them and impose a penalty, criminalize that owning or using or even stocking up or all these things are a criminal offense. Immediately bring in an ordinance. We will get the bill passed when the parliament reconvenes. But bring in an ordinance that all Chinese shoes shall be, including wearing a Chinese shoe which is environmentally not safe. Bring in a safety standard for the MSME goods. Identify all those good 80-20 formula, as you said. 80% of the imports in 20% of the, list out the 20% of the goods and bring in an ordinance, finish off the Chinese economy. Immediately the results will be much more. They will be under a lot of pressure. If the Chinese goods like the candles, even many such consumables are there, we are not able to even comprehend that level. Do a proper ABC analysis, bring out all the 80% items, 80% imports, which constitute the 20%. Even 20% items, if you put in a safety standard, MSME Safety Standards Act or ordinance or light engineering consumer protection for products of MSME, bring in such type of ordinance, you have already killed the Chinese economy.
Well, that's a very good suggestion, sir. The challenge that I see is that if you want to do things like, for example, if you want to match an LED bulb that China manufactures, the same quality, if you want to do that, you also need to be able to have a very good fab access, semiconductor fab access. And to me, those are only two possibilities, either South Korea or Taiwan. In fact, China built their fabs in Shanghai and other areas with Taiwan's help. It was Taiwan which went and had people go there and help them build. If it was not for Taiwan, China wouldn't be where it is. A lot of the island people felt that we should help their brethren out, and they went and did that. Now, if I draw parallels to that, A lot of NRIs would love to come to India and help India out, find its feet on the ground, help leapfrog, because you got to start working in a much faster manner to try and get to that
Outpace.
point where it is. I wish there was a way.
Outpace China.
Yeah, I wish there was a way that the government could say, okay, if these are the areas where we need some help, identify the areas, and then find out who might be interested in taking an equity and doing it, and allow them free in and out. Meaning they should be able to bring money in. They make profit. They should be able to take it out. Always a problem in India is bringing investment into India is easy. Taking it out is like pulling teeth from your jaws. So that kind of stuff should not be there, so that people feel emboldened to take it in and out. It doesn't matter. What matters at the end of the day is you have caught up with the other guys, and India can really give a run for China's money, because India has all the raw material, in my opinion. And I'm sure with what is happening now, Korea and Taiwan will be able to give whatever fab support that is required. And I don't see any problem with that. Right now, all we are doing is basically relying on China to give you low cost products. You take away that, then there is nothing there for them to stand on.
That's what I said. I actually, if there's a shout out to Mr. Nitin Gadkari, basically, he is one person who will listen to such innovations. It is my personal experience, and he will also go all out to implement it. And he is luckily in charge of MSME. There, if he can do that, apart from the shout out to the defense minister and the other security agencies, to kill them economically, Nitin Gadkari should immediately think of working out some legislative instrument, some rules, some to ensure that the Chinese products are debarred from India, and stocking and piling and all those things will be attracting exemplary penalties and criminalization. This type of a framework, let him bring out the entire. See, your MSME thing is very, very strong. I have a friend of southern region of Laghu Udyog Bharati, which is a representative body of MSMEs. He would himself take it up forward and do the required thing, because this is required for a lot of other issues also. This ban from Chinese will also affect so many other places, deliver many other multiple benefits in this, including the job creation which we are talking about. Including the job creation. There's a very latent benefit of the entire thing. And job creation, and excessively, it will also harness the skill development, everything, although the entire screen gets populated by virtue of this. That is what the government should really think on this. That is what is the end suggestion.
And let's hope that the government is listening. And like you said, Mr. Nitin Gadkari is very receptive to new ideas and suggestions. We are giving, as always, unsolicited advice, because we feel that we can make a difference. And let's hope that something good comes out of it. Thank you very much, Mr. Mani, for sharing your thoughts on the channel. And we'll be back with more such interesting conversations. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Atin.
Thank you.